everybody. Forget about Monday Night Football. We got Monday Night Baseball with the Motor City Madmouth and his incredible Hall of Fame crew. We will be talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame next week, but we'll talk about the business at hand, and I'll do it with an incredible cast of George Eichhorn.
Hello. Good to be back with you, Scott.
And Candy Eblin.
Always a pleasure talking baseball with you fine gentlemen.
And my manager and etc. Barry Foote.
Howdy, howdy. Thanks, Scott, for the invite.
Thanks for being on, Barry. And Eric Katz, my eventual successor on this show.
Thanks, Scott. Let's not wish for that too quickly now. I still got a lot to learn.
Well, this kid learns. He's a quick study, isn't he? And my Uncle Warren.
Thank you, Scott. Great to be here. Enjoy it. I look forward to every Monday night.
I'll tell you, I got a dream team. All right, well, let's get to the business at hand. Okay, according to Jacob Rudner of Baseball America, University of Tennessee pitching coach Frank Anderson is headed to the Giants to join Tony Vitello's coaching staff. Anderson's role hasn't been determined. We've talked about Vitello before, so we'll start off with you, George. He brings his pitching coach with him. Some thoughts?
Well, I think it's good. The familiarity, there's a lot to be said for that. You know, when you're beginning a new assignment or taking a new job as a manager or a coach, I mean, you want to surround yourself with people if you can. We know it's not all possible, but if you can, at least a few of them. And I think that's a good move. He should help the Giants out. And there's new blood. You know, there's new ideas, new coaching. I don't have to tell Barry and Warren this, but there's so much goodness sometimes when you surround yourself with successful people. Unfortunately, you're not going to bring guys that kind of failed under your leadership, but when you surround yourself with success and people that are going to help the ball club, I'm all for it. I really am. I think you'll do well.
Candy?
When coaches coach like how they coach and you work well together, you're going to bring those guys with you to help have more success. So it makes sense that he would bring a guy that he's worked with before and had success with before to their staff.
Go to my manager, Barry.
The manager should be able to pick his staff, first of all, and the most important person on the staff is the pitching coach. So if he's going to be successful, which I think it's a tall order, but hopefully I'm wrong, he needs to have his own pitching coach.
Eric?
I think it's important because number one, he's worked with them before. Number two, historically though, when you see managers and coaches going to the next level and then they win a championship at like whatever level they're playing on, they often bring their pitching coach with them. And it's it's something that I think he had to do because he needs somebody familiar there to kind of guide him in the right direction. Although they both got their work cut out for them because San Francisco now has to climb Mount Los Angeles in the NL West.
Mount Los Angeles. Guess what, Warren? You get to go that.
Yeah, well, there's no question they've had great success together. And anytime two people work like that together, of course, he would obviously want to bring him to San Francisco with him with somebody that he's familiar with. So I mean, it's a great fit for both of them. They've had great success at Tennessee. They turned Tennessee and from SEC also ran into a power in the state or in the whole College World Series and everything. And Frank comes from a great, to have 100 and something pitchers that have been drafted. He has had 10 first-round selections, so he knows his stuff. And that's where I learned to pitch. I learned to pitch in college. I was taught by my coach Bob Bennett at Fresno State, and then I went out in the minor leagues and applied what he taught me.
All right, let's go on to the St. Louis Cardinals. They've obviously missed the postseason 3 straight years. What can be expected of them in the offseason, George?
Well, where do we start? I mean, they need a lot of help, both on the defensive side and the offensive side. I mean, St. Louis, to me, is one of those marquee franchises. We talk about cities that have great teams and great history. St. Louis is right there at the top of my list. And I really think that they've got to get some more help in the bullpen, and they also need to get if they can pick up another starter or two. I mean, it's a tall order. It is really a tall order. But you know what? Cardinals management, I'm going back to Bush Senior. I mean, going back through the decades, even, they've not been afraid to go out and spend money where they have to. And one of that is due to the fact that they draw such great crowds and they have really super attendance most of the time. But you hit the point right on the head there, Scott. That's un-St. Louis like to miss 3 years in a row. And obviously there's going to have to be a lot of action starting with the winter baseball meetings. But I do look for the Cardinals to be active, especially in the pitching area, but also on the hitting side as well.
I'm going to go back to the first topic for a moment. I couldn't agree with everybody more. First of all, you bring a guy in who's a brand new guy. You bring in someone from his old place. You definitely want familiarity with a guy like him. And I think a lot of times, regardless of what the sport is, you're going to find coaches bring in other people so they've been able to work with them. So that's a great point. As far as the Cardinals, they have a lot of work to do. The attendance has definitely gone down, and they need the baseball winter meetings in the worst way to go out there and try to generate some excitement, because St. Louis is one of the better sports baseball towns in America. Candy?
They're kind of in a rebuild. Like, they just haven't been doing as well. Now, the interesting thing will be, will they trade Wilson Contreras, who had a no-trade clause in his contract, but is more open now to actually being traded? Let's face it, he wants to win now, and the Cardinals, they're in a tough division, first of all, and they're rebuilding now, and I think they've got a lot of little holes that they need to fill to be competitive.
Barry?
They're rebuilding. It's going to take them a while. They got a lot of holes to fill. They got Arenado, who wants to leave, and it's just one of those situations that happens once in a while. And it's a great franchise, and great fan base. Probably some of the most loyal fans in all of sports. So they'll get it turned around, but it probably won't be quickly. It'll probably take them some time.
Eric?
I mean, this offseason, it's about shedding the vets. They're trying to kind of convince some guys with no trade clauses to waive them and go to a contender, so that way St. Louis can start acquiring some prospects for their minor league system. Man, this minor league system has always been St. Louis's bread and butter. Countless players have come through there: Albert Pujols, Scott Rowland, Jim Edmonds, Stan Musial, just to name a few. However, it's fallen off in recent years. I mean, now they've had more prospect busts than they have had successes, and so this team needs prospects, and I think they're rebuilding. I know they got Chaim Bloom, who did a fantastic job with the Rays farm system, and even did some good things with the Boston Red Sox, who unfortunately fired him because John Henry can't help himself. But it's unfortunately what happens. Not the first time the Cardinals have missed the playoffs in consecutive years. It happened like not too long ago, from I believe about I think just before Mike Schilt took over full time. And so, but it happens. The Cardinals have gone through long periods of time before where they haven't been contending. Take the early Tony La Russa years, for example. So, I wouldn't expect them to be out of it for long, because they're one of the most consistent teams in baseball.
Warren?
Well, that's the one thing you don't hear about the Cardinals, is ever rebuilding. They just add on and add and subtract usually from year to year. But from what I see, it all started when Molina retired. That's when they started the downward trend. And like Barry, being an ex-catcher, knows, hey, that's the most important spot on the ball club. You've got to have a catcher that runs that pitching staff, and it's taken them a while to get somebody. And then with Contreras and Arenado, are they staying? Are they going? So the team's been in flux for a few years now. And I know they'll turn it around, because it's a great fan base. It's one of the most places, it's the place I enjoyed going in and playing. They were fun people to play in front of.
Yeah, Scott Rowland was one heck of a player when he did play there, for sure. Obviously, he's a big part of their success, for sure.
Great player.
Oh, he sure was. Let's talk about a guy I'm all too familiar with. His name is Skip Schumacher. What can be expected from the Texas Rangers for the 2026 season? Obviously, he's the new manager, Skip Schumacher. He takes over for Bruce Bochy. We'll start off with you, George.
Skip Schumacher. Well, first of all, I was surprised that Bochy didn't have better success. But again, you're talking about a team that has too many, quite a few holes to plug. I've always liked Skip as a manager. I thought he's done a good job, decent job. And I really think that Texas is one of those franchises that, in the past has spent a lot of money and they haven't had really much success except for a few. When Ronnie Washington was really good back then in the day with them. But I really think that Skip's a good guy. Again, the managerial carousel, he's obviously one of the biggest names there. Okay. When you're looking for a skipper, I mean, this guy's got a lot of experience. So I'm looking for good things from them. But once again, they got some holes to plug before they can be considered serious contenders, in my point.
Well,
View.
George, all Bruce Bochy did, by the way, just so you know, is he won a World Series championship. Okay, so
Yeah,
he's the only one that's ever done it. Just in case you forgot. Okay, but anyways, just think about it, George. Okay, I have other ways to come down on you, but I won't. I'll give you a little leash there. Okay, go ahead. But as far as Skip Schumacher, well, I worked with him in Miami. He did a decent job here, but he was a victim of a change at the general manager position in Miami, and obviously, I'm not going to go into any details tonight. I want to stay on track and keep Uncle Warren and as many topics as I can before he has to bolt. Okay, go ahead, Candy.
As National League Manager of the Year award winner in 2023, what Skip Schumacher did for the Marlins when the Marlins were, let's face it, they're kind of the laughing stock, I would say, of the National League. I mean, they don't spend a lot of money. They're a hodgepodge of all kinds of, players. And what Skip did was to rally and get them. The owner doesn't give them much to work with. In Miami, he didn't. And so what he did to get them to get that National League Manager of the Year, he did a lot. So I expect great things out of him in Texas.
Barry?
Depends on pitching. If the pitchers can hold up, they'll be okay. I don't see them being contenders. And there's a little bit of a red flag when Bochy leaves. I think he probably was feeling that maybe they'd done all they could do with what they had to work with. And Bochy's the greatest playoff World Series manager in history. I don't even know if he's 500 career average overall wins and losses, but he's won 4 World Series, so he's a Hall of Fame manager. And for him to leave, that tells me there's something there that he didn't like.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You're right, Barry. That guy is money in the postseason for sure. Eric?
Well, with Bochy though, let's keep in mind though, especially toward the end there in San Diego, when the Padres had a very Marlins-like fire sale, and ultimately the poor guy was screwed going forward. But I will say though, with Skip Schumacher, I think that I'm not expecting him to contend. This team's kind of in transition right now. They've been stuck in the middle ever since they won the World Series. And I think the nucleus has kind of run dry there. Yeah, they got Brandon Nimmo, but that was more or less a salary dump because they would rather take a decent Brandon Nimmo over what has become a declining Marcus Semien. But I think that what we're going to expect here is he's going to get more wins out of them than people think. But I don't see them contending. So the first year I think is all about just figuring out what he has.
Warren?
Right, I agree with that. He's coming in fresh face, and a lot of times a new manager can change things, change the way the team is run, and but like Barry said, with Bochy leaving, there's a red flag there. So obviously they're not bringing in the players that they need to contend. They're in a pretty weak division. The only team in that division that's decent right now is Seattle. Houston's fallen on hard times, in California and Oakland. I don't think either one of them know what they're doing. They're just kind of floundering, both of them. So they are in an easier division, but they don't have enough players to work with to even be a contender. They may make the playoffs, but they'd be a first round out if they did.
Good points. Okay. All right. Well, obviously, last week we talked a little bit about umpiring, and I'll tell you what, there's a guy that wasn't too happy with it, gets thrown out of an awful lot of games. I'm referring to New York Yankees manager Aaron Boone, who said, "You effing stink." If everybody knows what it means, you know what it means. Yeah. Okay. But he went off on the umpiring crew in New York's loss to the Astros during the season. The Yankees manager straight up was just shouting at umpire Brian Walsh's face as we mentioned last week, the ABS robot system will be used on a limited basis, with each team getting 2 challenges per game. So again, we all know that Aaron Boone hasn't been shy about getting thrown out, but let's talk about the position, George, that Aaron was in. He was arguing with about an Astros call, and I know it's a way back, but I like to talk about what Aaron mentions, because here's a guy that obviously played the game of baseball and now he's managing it. So take it from there, George.
Well, when you take the profanity out of it and you take the emotion out of it, I'm sure Aaron is one of the guys in baseball, I know he is, that knows a lot about balls and strikes and calls. I respect people like that have a gripe, have a concern, let's say, not necessarily a gripe in one instance or one game, but an overall concern about the quality of umpiring. And I've said this before, they have lost a lot of umpires in the last 10 or less years that have quit. They've out and out quit. Most of the veteran staff is gone. So what does that mean? That means it could mean 2 things. It could mean that they're tired of it. They're tired of BS, the umpires, but that's not the important. The important part is do they have the quality, the right young umpires that they are training and that they are advancing to the major league level? That's the question mark I have. I'm not convinced that these guys are the quality that some of the guys were in the past. That being said, then you've got to get yourself a committee. You've got to get yourself some training, and you've got to get a good leader to do that. And I think the managers can help out and in making umpires better if there's cooperation and communication. And that's something that I think is lacking in the baseball world, the major league level. They've got to have better umpires, but they've got to have the input. What are the things that are needed besides balls and strikes? But yes, the new system will be used, and these guys are going to have to show that they belong in the big leagues, or else get them out of there.
Candy?
I think sometimes what a manager does is he can go there to argue a call, partly to do it to rally your team behind you, maybe to give them a break, maybe to cool them off, but maybe to just show them support that you have the players back as well. And yes, maybe Aaron takes it to a different level. I get that. We might not always agree with the language he used and everything like that, but sometimes it's something to be said that he goes and he fights for his players as well.
So question for you, Barry. How would you like to go ahead and play for a guy like Aaron Boone? You obviously know his position on balls and strikes. Also, I'm going to break this down, Barry, 2 ways. One, where your thoughts about the fact that he had that umpire and utilized the language. And 2, would you like to play for a guy like Aaron Boone?
Well, both Warren and I watched Aaron Boone and Rhett Boone grow up running around the field at Veterans Stadium. And I never knew that he was going to have such a potty mouth when he was a young kid.
Really?
But, 3rd generation major league player. His father was an all-star. His grandfather was an all-star. So he's got the right lineage. He's under, you're under incredible pressure in New York. Right. And I'm sure that brings out a lot of the, pressure on him to try to keep the team rolling and all. But umpiring is bad. It's much worse than when Warren and I were playing, in my opinion, just watching the umpire. And the other thing is, those umpires got a lot of power now. It's hard to fire an umpire. It's hard to get rid of an umpire if you want to get rid of them. So, you just look at some of the umpires they've gotten rid of, what it took for them just to fire a guy like Hernandez, who was awful for many years, and you never could get rid of him because, they have their own association, and it's very, very difficult to get rid of an umpire.
So then the second half of the question is, would you or would you not want to play for Aaron Boone?
Look, at the big league level, I don't mind. I don't care who I'm playing for. We played with some really dummy managers in the big leagues and won, and I played with good managers and lost. I played for Gene Mocco. I thought was like at another level as far as understanding the game from everybody else, and he never won. So I think Boone's done a good job. I'd have no problem playing for him. He's a professional guy. He comes from a professional family, so I think it'd probably be a pleasure playing for him.
Okay, Eric.
I mean, let's be honest. I think it's the only time ever is when the world agreed on something was when Angel Hernandez finally left Major League Baseball. It was probably the only time you'll ever see that in your lifetimes. But yeah, as far as umpires go, I mean, I'm happy the ABS system's in place. We've had the technology to do it. I mean, obviously nowadays, though, I mean, we can kind of correct the mistakes that often happen. But, but as far as like umpiring goes, it's been a problem. It's been a problem for a while. I mean, there's still a bunch of despite Angel Hernandez leaving, we still got some bad apples in there. We really do. And as far as Aaron Boone getting tossed, doesn't surprise me. He's in the top. It didn't take him long to be number 30th all time in ejections. So, he's already off to a rip roaring start in terms of trying to get up to Bobby Cox level. But as far as what Aaron Boone says at the umpires, I mean, Larry Boa once wrote a book called Bleep, so that probably explains all you need to know about him.
That was good, Eric. You do come up with some great stuff. All right, I don't know, Warren. You got to follow him. Go ahead.
How can I follow that?
Yeah,
Did you happen to read the book?
No, I didn't. But I'm going to look for it.
yeah, thanks. Bo,
he's in. Being in New York is a totally different place than just about anywhere else in baseball. He's under a huge amount of scrutiny. If he was in Minnesota, nobody would even be talking about it. But he's from a baseball family, third generation. And he's been around the game all his life, and he knows the game, and he'd be fun to play for. Because he knows the game, he knows how to go, and basically when he gets thrown out, he's covering, he's backing his players. A lot of times the players get fired up when a manager gets kicked out of the game. I mean, he gives you that just a little spike of adrenaline just to cover him. He's covering you. You got to cover him back.
Yeah, nothing like the old adrenaline way to get motivated. All right, George, we'll take you to a town you're all too familiar with, and that's Detroit. During the postseason, the Tigers are 13 up, 57 down, 13 for 57, with runners in scoring position this past postseason. This is obviously something to watch. What do you think they're going to be doing during the offseason at the baseball winter meetings, George? What have you heard?
Well, I think the Tigers, first of all, it's not from lack of trying. I know AJ surrounded himself with a good staff and is trying to think more small ball in some of the scoring opportunities, that they have. The problem is that the Tigers are like a lot of teams when they're trying to slug their way to a win. And you gotta realize that these runners, you're just never going to win if that's consistent. And that poor statistic sticks out like a sore thumb for Tiger fans and for the team itself. I think that they're going to have to fine tune that roster a little bit. The whole thing is up in the air about Skubal, whether they're going to try to move him now or wait, or God forbid, maybe try to sign him. But we don't know that. It's just going to be a fine tuning, I think. But they've got to get better hitters, run production. You just can't rely on the long ball, and they got too many guys on that team that do that. Riley Green does it a lot. Torkelson does it a lot. Meadows. Carpenter. These guys are home run hitters, most of them. But you've got to get those runners in. There's no question about that, Scott. If they don't improve that stat, they're done for next year already. They don't want that to happen.
Yeah, we all know that Tarek Skubal has certainly been a topic of conversation. They will, it's either one, they get that contract extended, or two, they have to get value for him.
Yeah.
We'll obviously have more information by next Monday's show about what they've done, because I know, having covered the baseball winter meetings on a couple of occasions, a lot of stuff happens and sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, it happens after the fact, after these people have spoken. Candy?
You guys are in a catch-22, because what do you do with Tarek Skubal? He has 1 year left on his contract. He wants to stay a Tiger, but he also is going to command a lot of money. And there's going to be a lot of interest out there. So the question is do you pay him the money? Do you have enough money to pay him and to pay others on the team? So it's not just him, because he's not out there doing it all by himself. So you need to find, do you have enough money to pay him, to pay others? Can you sign free agent third baseman Alex Bregman? I know that's been tossed around right now out there. I think you guys need more help around the starting rotation, your bullpen, because Tarek Skubal can't stay in the game for the whole time. And then you probably need a corner outfielder spot to help with that bat. Those are the common things, the needs that I think you guys have right now. But the biggest question is you got to decide what you're going to do with Tarek Skubal, so then the other dominoes can fall.
Great points, Candy. All right, Barry.
I'd trade him. I'd get them all the players I could get for him because I just don't see how they're going to pay him 45 to 50 million a year, which is probably going to be the market for him, next year. I would trade him. I'd get all the players I could for him, and go from there. Because who's his agent, George? Do you know who his agent is?
Scott Boras.
Scott,
Well, so there's
Scott
no way
Boras.
they're going to sign him.
Yeah.
I thought I heard he was a Boris guy. He's going to become a free agent. He's going to demand 50 million a year. That's his market.
Eric, good points, Barry.
I mean, gosh, it's such a hard arm to give up because he's at the top of your rotation. However, what Detroit hasn't done, what Detroit has failed to do is they failed to give Batman a Robin here. And for those of a certain age, where's Burt Ward when you need him? But there's there's like you have to like trade him at this point because if you're like $250 million apart, which is what they reportedly were from what was last reported, you have to just get rid of him at that point. You could command a king's ransom for that kind of arm. Plus, he's going to be a free agent. He's a Scott Boras guy. So he's going to be a free agent. So love Boras or hate Boras, but he always takes guys to the open market. And Skubal, you can bet a lot of money that Tarek Skubal will be on the open market, and boy oh boy, it will be a piranha pool of people trying to sign him.
I'll say one thing about Tarek Skubal. He wears number 29. The last Tiger left-hander that was any good was Mickey Lowell, who sported that number as well. So I'll turn over to Warren.
Yeah. Both left-handed too.
Yeah, left-handed, exactly.
Well, and that's where it starts. It starts with Tarek Skubal. I mean, and then let the dominoes fall from there. Obviously they need some people to drive in runs. They blew a 15-game lead from the middle of August. So something went wrong from the middle of August on to the end of the season through the playoffs. Something happened in Detroit. They started falling on hard times. They got off to a great start, had a great season, or had a great 2/3 of the season, but the last third was not good. So they've got some holes, and they've got to fill those holes if they're going to continue to contend.
Excellent points. We'll stay with the Detroit Tigers. Let's talk about communication. This guy takes it to a new level. But 100 times a day is probably too much. Safe to say Scott Harrison, A.J. Hinch have great communication. And bear in mind, there would be no reunion with the Houston Astros, as obviously Hinch stayed with the Tigers and got that extension. 100 times a day, George, these guys stay in touch. What are your thoughts? At least to say that as they have an internal thing here going and there's no shortage of communication.
Yeah, I'll say that, Scott. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the relationship between those two guys is really solid. Obviously, that goes without saying. I don't know how many times they're ripping each other during those 100 texts a day, but I don't think it's that many times. The good part is that.
Well, it is, George. My sources said it did. Want me to really seriously, I'll do it. Go ahead. Don't question my sources.
I think that it's one of the better relationships between management and coaching, if you will, in baseball. But let's see if it can produce the results they need. And that's obviously, like we talked about earlier, just making this team better and not having a folding act like you talked about, Warren, during that August swoon and September swoon.
Well, the reality, George, general manager / whatever he is up there, is communicating with a manager. At least they get along. All right, George, don't say nothing, okay?
All right.
But while you're ahead, okay, before you get hammered the next time. Go ahead, Candy.
It's always good to have good open communication within an organization because if you don't, there's no recipe for success. So it starts with good open communication. So kudos for them for having that. And now they got to keep building on that.
Mary, if you're guy up there contacted you that many times, what would happen?
I hope the hell we're talking about golf or something else, because if you're talking about baseball every time, you're definitely going to have paralysis from analysis.
Right.
No question about that. And look, first off, I doubt that they do 100 times a day. I'd want to count on that. But yeah, it's good to have good communications, but I think you can over communicate sometimes as well. So at the end of the day, you will evaluate them all on wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
Great point. Paralysis from analysis. I like that. I have to remember that one. I guess I have to remember it because this is always on record anyway. It's paralysis from analysis. Write that down, Candy. You might need it for another show. All right, go ahead, Eric.
I mean, I seriously doubt you could talk to a guy 100 times in like one day. But it's good to hear though that AJ Hinch and Scott Harris are clearly on the same page with what their vision is for this team going forward. Now I hope that vision includes finding a Robin for Tarek Skubal as well as some better bats in that lineup, because you can't just survive with 200 strikeout pluses from Riley Green, as well as Kerry Carpenter seemingly getting injured every other game.
Right.
So that vision. So I think it needs some tweaks. I think it's good to hear that they're on the right page. But this team needs some more, man, if they want to even think about getting back to the World Series and bringing a title back to Motown.
I'll have to ask Harris about that, how often he communicates with AJ Hinch. I am planning to go to Lakeland at some point. I'll see if I can track him down. All right, Warren, what do you think if somebody contacted you that much?
Well, yeah, that'd drive you crazy unless they are, like Barry said, talking golf or something, bowling or something else. Yeah, but I mean, AJ Hinch has been successful everywhere he's gone, so he knows what he's doing. And more power to Scott to get the players for that AJ needs to put out on the field. So they're headed in the right direction, And again, Skubal is the big piece that they have, the big chip that they have to put on the table. And if they can get talent for him, they'll be better off as an organization, as a team in the long run. Because this isn't a short term. It's not a short term deal. I mean, they're looking, 3 to 5 years down the road. They've got a lot of young talent.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue on. Well, let's talk about Nolan Arenado. He says he wants to play for Puerto Rico for his mother in the World Baseball Classic in 2026. George, what are your thoughts about Nolan Arenado? All we hear about his trade, but this time this guy's going to go to the WBC, and he wants to play for Puerto Rico. More power to him. Go ahead, George.
Well, yeah, that's the way I feel. If somebody has an allegiance like that and they want to play for their home country, I'm not going to get mad at them. But I mean, yeah, you would like everything to be, the USA. A lot of people pro USA want USA all the time to win. Well, here's a case where the guy loves his native land. He loves his country. Puerto Rico, yes, is a territory of the United States, but it's not its own entity as a state. So they play under the Puerto Rican flag. And if that's what he'd like to do and represent his nation, I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of or criticize the fella. No way. Let him do it.
Candy?
I get that. I get to a certain extent, but he was not born in Puerto Rico. He was born in California. His father is of Cuban ancestry, and his mother is of Cuban and Puerto Rican ancestry. So, but if he wants to play and he has ties to Puerto Rican, then go for it. I mean, obviously, those of us here in the U.S. want the best players in the U.S. to play for the U.S., but I understand. I'm glad that baseball has something World Classic that they can represent the countries and play.
Barry?
I think he should go play for Puerto Rico if he wants to, but not forget he's made $300+ million working for a team that's owned by U.S. entities. So he shouldn't forget that part of his life. But hey, look, if it makes him happy to go play for Puerto Rico, have at it.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is more power to him. All right, Eric.
Well, I will say, though, at least he's not pulling an Alex Rodriguez where he plays for Team USA 1 year and then 3 years later he plays for the Dominican Republic. Let's not forget about that little incident. But good for Nolan Arenado. I mean, I think players should be allowed to pick where they want to play as long as it's within the rules. I don't see an issue with it. I think Nolan Arenado knows exactly where he stands. So I and actually I know he knows where he stands, knowing the kind of player he's been over the years. So I don't have an issue with it. But this is his one time to you can only in your career in baseball, and especially in the World Baseball Classic, you only have one, maybe two times where you can represent your country, and he's taken advantage of it. But at least he's not pulling an Alex Rodriguez where he plays for USA one year and then the Dominican Republic the next.
Okay. Warren.
Well, more power to him. I mean, would he be the third baseman for the USA team? Probably not. And going down and playing for Puerto Rico or playing for the Puerto Rican team makes WBC just that much more competitive. So they've got a major league player at third base. So that's the way I look at it. I want to see the best players playing in the WBC, best each team can find.
Okay, we talked about the Colorado Rockies. Guess what? We're going to talk about them again. Obviously, they had the worst run differential ever. The Rockies locked up the distinction of the worst team run differential in modern day baseball history with a staggering minus 424 on the season. Now, they recently actually hired Josh Burns, the Dodgers VP of baseball operations since 2014, and he's the general manager of the San Diego Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks. George, what are your thoughts about those particular additions for Colorado? Let's talk about the run differential first, and then we'll talk about hiring. It's a two-part question, George.
Yeah, that run differential, that's embarrassing. I mean, that's totally ridiculous. I mean, you look at their stats this year, and they were down among the worst, obviously. I think they scored 597. They didn't even score 600 runs the whole year. I think it was 597. That's the Rockies. And, besides the hitting department, of course, there's problems with the pitching staff as well. But yeah, you've got to close that gap on run differential. You're never going to win in baseball if you have such an outstanding and negative balance like that. Well, not knowing too much about this fella, and let me put it this way: when you get a guy that's got experience at that level and has played, has been in the front office of the LA Dodgers, one of the premier, if not the premier franchise right now, then I think it should be a good sign. I mean, it's like Detroit went after Scott Harris, but I mean, when you talk about the Dodgers, I mean, you're talking about some blue blood there. You're talking about a great, history, past, farm system, all of it, major league level. So I'm hoping that maybe he can do some things, but it's going to take a long time. This Rockies franchise is got to turn around sooner or later.
Well, I'll go back to what Barry said. I love what he said about the Colorado Rockies got mules and horses. Barry, there's some things you just mentioned and some things that just stand out. When you talk about mules and horses, and that's the one thing that stood out to me about last week's episode. So, Josh Burns, you need to bring in some horses because God only knows you got a lot of mules. All right, I'll leave it from there. And then, Barry, you're welcome to follow up on your one-liner after Candy's done. Go ahead.
It surprises me that Colorado had such a run differential, considering they're the ones that are used to playing in Colorado with the altitude and everything like that. But, hey, when you're bad, you're bad. And they can only go up from there. So hiring anybody that can help them to get better is to their benefit.
Okay, Barry, want to bring up the mules, the horses? What do you think of the Josh Burns hire?
I'd say they got problems and they got a lot of holes to fill, and they need a lot of good sinker ballers like Warren Brewstar on the mound there to keep the ball in the ballpark. And I'd say they got a tough row to hoe going forward.
Yeah, that run differential is pretty bad, isn't it? Without a doubt. Okay, Eric.
Well, I think they made a good choice in hiring him. I mean, he's been in the front offices of both the Boston Red Sox and the Los Angeles Dodgers, to which I hate to admit it, but at that point in time, the Dodgers had the Red Sox had one of the better front offices in baseball. I believe that was under the Theo Epstein regime.
Right.
But he's been a GM before. I mean, he was the general manager in San Diego, best known for trading away Anthony Rizzo. But in Arizona, He oversaw the drafting of guys like Paul Goldschmidt, Max Scherzer, AJ Pollock, who was good for a period of time, and also Adam Eaton, another guy who was really good for a nice period of time. You know, he's been here before. I think Colorado's a great spot for anybody who's getting a GM job, because that job allows you to be creative. It allows you to figure out things. I mean, Dick Monfort, to his credit, though, has the patience and will let you do your thing. But again, it's a mess there, and they're probably, I'd probably argue that they were worse than the 121 loss Chicago White Sox, as they were really that bad. And they just, I think now that they're at the bottom of the barrel, I think now it's nowhere to go but up, and I think that they have the right guys there to make stuff happen. However, that organization needs to modernize analytics, the whole cabal. Otherwise, they're going to be what they always are, which is the same old sorry Rockies.
All right, Warren, follow that.
Yeah. Well, they are. They're in deep trouble right now. And Josh Burns is a good hire. He's got a good track record. So he's proven he knows what he's doing, and so he's a good man to do that job. It's because they got to turn around. They're horrendous. They're just they got a lot of work ahead of them. So he's a good man to have. It's good. You start at the top. So they're starting by hiring somebody that can help turn that organization around.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. I talked about it last week. We're going to mention it now. Uncle Warren's got about 10 minutes. I'll make sure he gets a piece of this action. But expected to retire, Anthony Rendon and the Angels are in talks to actually buy out the final year of his contract, with the expectation that he will retire. He had a 7-year contract worth $245 million. He spent the entire 2025 season recovering from hip surgery and is owed about $38 million in 2026. Arguably one of the worst free agent signings ever. So, Uncle Warren, I'll let you start off. What are your thoughts about Anthony Rendon and how it's worked out in Southern California? It hasn't been too good for him.
Well, he was a great player when he was healthy, but he couldn't stay on the field when he was with California. And it's one of the worst signings ever. Because I thought when they got him, boy, they're starting to get some players around Mike Trout, because Mike Trout's been the MVP and a great player, and he's had trouble staying on the field, and pitching's always been an issue in that organization. But it's sad to see such a good player, at the end of his career. And from what I read today, he's pretty much done. They don't expect him to play anymore. He's getting ready to retire.
Okay, go ahead, Eric. I'll go back the other way.
Well, I'm glad for the Angels' sake that they got Anthony Rendon to do that. I think at the time, though, even though it's become the worst contract ever, let's remember at the time, though, it was seen as a great signing for the Angels, who had Mike Trout at the time. And keep in mind, too, Ohtani had just arrived there, too. So imagine that. However, even Ohtani had his injury problems there. And it's unfortunate, though, that it didn't work out, because at the time they signed him, he had just led the National League in RBI and helped the Nationals upset the Houston Astros in that season's World Series, which was enjoyable on my end. But it's unfortunate, though, that his career ended that way. It really is. He was considered at the time one of the better players in baseball, and he's going to retire. Unfortunately, though, I don't think he left the way he wanted to.
Okay. All right, Barry.
Never been a big Rendon fan. There's something about, I never liked the signing. I thought it was a huge amount of money for him. Right. And then he came out and said something about baseball wasn't really his first love. Yeah. I'd say, but look, the Angels are the worst when it comes to signing. Right. They got Trout, and poor Trout's been injured a lot here in the latter part of after signing that huge contract. Ohtani, leaves them. So it's just they should be competitive with the Dodgers, but they just got that organization doesn't seem to get out of its own way.
Handy.
7 years, $245 million. What did he do to deserve that? He only has 1,218 hits over his career. His batting average is .280. He's hit 158 home runs and 671 runs batted in. He's 35 years old. Yep. He just didn't deserve that big of a contract. No way, no how. I mean, if he deserves that, I'll go out there and do for half that. I'm sorry, but I'm saying.
That's funny.
That's
Great
what
stuff.
happens.
Great stuff, Mrs. Stat. Okay, go ahead, George.
Well, I have to disagree a little bit, Candy. He had some good years with the Washington Nationals, and at the time when they signed him, the Angels thought he was going to be good. But listen to this stuff. This is unbelievable. This man had only 54 hits in 2020. 54 hits. Then the next year, 52. Then the third year, 38. You get the picture here. Just as Eric said, I mean, this was a bad contract. This was a bad acquisition. It really blew up in the Angels' face. Another franchise that is just down in the dumps right now, and that needs a resurgence. And I wouldn't bring him back. I mean, let's say goodbye. But man, oh man, that's a huge contract to eat. But they're going to probably have to do that. But yeah, he has been not good at all. Needless to say.
All right, let's go back. Let's talk about baseball history. I have a few guys obviously know it all too well. So we're going to go back to our no-hitter of the night. Bob Gibson's no-hitter occurred in August, obviously, way back in the day, versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, thanks to outstanding defensive plays by Jose Cruz and Joe Torre. I'll let Candy research what it is, but Bob Gibson throwing a no-hitter was definitely a treat, wasn't it, Warren?
Oh yes, he was a treat to watch. I can remember as a little boy watching him. He was fun to watch. Boy, you definitely didn't get comfortable in the batter's box. You dig in, and boy, you got one right by your neck.
Yeah.
He was fun to watch, and he revolutionized the game. He revolutionized pitching. They moved the mound from 12 inches to 9 inches after he had the 1.12 ERA that one year, and I believe it was 67 or 68. So he changed the game. He was a great athlete. He played 1 year for the Harlem Globetrotters. He was just a wonderful athlete.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, I wouldn't want to face him either. When it
No.
comes to pitching inside and intimidating guys, or anybody better than Bob Gibson. Many years ago, I did meet him over at Riverfront Stadium. I think it was in '86 during an old timers game with the Reds, and he happened to be there. He was a nice guy, from what I got to know. Wish we would have had camera phones back then, Eric.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, he changed the game. He changed pitching. They moved the mound back because of him, because he was so just so dominant. And don't get too comfy in there because he'll throw at you. Heck, he threw at Carl Yastrzemski in the World Series.
Right. Barry?
Well, I did hit against Gibson, but it was at the end of his career. But one of my favorite stories about Gibson was when he was at the prime of his career. We had a rookie pitcher named Baylor Moore. Gene Monk liked to take the ball for your first game and go by and kind of give you a little pep talk. And in this case, he throws Baylor Moore the ball he's going to warm up with that day and said, "Son, we're out there against Gibson tonight. Throw a shutout and we'll play for a tie." So, and he ended up losing the game 1-0. So Gibson was one of the all-time great ones. And I'm sure Warren probably heard stories that I heard from Tim McCarver when we were with the Phillies talking about some of the stuff Gibson did. So, yeah, he's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge him tonight. I wanted Barry to acknowledge him tonight. It was time for us to do that. And obviously, who knows what kind of moves will be made during the baseball winter meetings, but anybody that knows Bob Gibson, the way he pitched, is unbelievable. All right, Candy.
So Gibson achieved 2 highlights in August of 71. One, on the 4th, he defeated the Giants 7-2 at Busch Memorial Stadium for his 200th career victory. 10 days later, he threw a no-hitter against the Pittsburgh Pirates, beating the eventual World Series world champions by a score of 11-0 at Three Rivers Stadium. Along the way, he registered 10 strikeouts, including the game's final out. Gibson also drove in 3 runs, 1 in the 5th inning, sacrifice fly, and 2 on an 8th-inning single to help his own cause. The no-hitter was the first in Pittsburgh since Nick Maddox at Exposition Park in 1907. None had been pitched in the 62-year history of Three Rivers Stadium predecessor Forbes Field. I mean, he did a lot of different things. I mean, I was reading that he once, where is it? Gibson faced Pittsburgh Pirates on July 15th when Roberto Clemente hit a line drive off Gibson's right leg. Unaware his leg had been fractured, Gibson faced 3 more batters before his right fibula bone snapped above the ankle.
Oh.
Can you imagine? Like that just goes to tell you how tough he really was. And to change the game like he did, great pitcher.
Yeah, I was actually at Three Rivers Stadium many years ago when the Lions took on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pretty cool place. It was one of those cookie cutter ballparks. All right, go ahead, George.
Yeah, this was the 13th big league season for Gibson, and this is one of the achievements that had eluded him. And, he racked up, like you guys talked about, World Series, MVP awards, Cy Young awards, All-Star games, you name it, that unbelievable season in 68, shattering that ERA mark, 1.12, 13 shutouts that year. But he just could not get that no-hitter. So I know, even though he was pitching rather average for him, obviously, goes without saying, 10-10, when he met the Pirates on that day, August 14th, 1971. So he closed the deal, man. He closed the deal. One of the last things that he had to do as a big league pitcher is achieve that at age 35. So it was a great night, Scott. I mean, I was too young to be involved with any remembrance of that occasion, but I'm glad you brought it up because he was one of the best. Like you said, Eric, he changed the face. He changed the pitching model.
All right, Warren, I got one more topic. Actually, I got 2. Right. I'm gonna hit you with both of them, and then everybody else will comment on them. First of all, let's go back in baseball history. On November 23rd, 1962, Maury Wills does win the NL MVP award, stealing 104 stolen bases to break the season record by Ty Cobb. What are your thoughts about Maury Wills?
Oh, he was great. I loved watching him. I was a big Giants fan, still have been to this day. And the Dodgers and Giants were the big rivals, and he was fun to watch. They, when they came to play at Candlestick, they used to water the baselines down. They'd make it a big mud puddle so he couldn't run. So it was fun to see what they tried to do to slow him down, but you couldn't slow him down. I mean, stealing 104 bases is unbelievable, and the game's not played that way anymore. Stealing, if you steal 50 or 60 bases, you're going to lead the leagues now. And he was a great player. He was, and he was an older player. It took him a while before he got to the big leagues, but he had a great career while he was there.
I'll give you one more topic. I know you have to get going at 9 o'clock, so I might as well slip this last one in while you're on here.
All right.
And get this. Okay, Rusty Staub is the only player in MLB history to achieve over 500 hits with 4 different clubs: the Astros, the Mets, Tigers, and the Expos. Some thoughts about Rusty Staub.
Oh, he's a great hitter. I got to face him a few times. He was fun to face. He was a good hitter, and he hit a lot of home runs. He was great ambassador for the game. Everybody loved him wherever he played. He had a great career. Great individual.
Okay, well, great stuff for you answering. So you know what? I know you got to get going in about 3 minutes. So the last minute and a half, you can go ahead and let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Okay, I can be reached at Brewster, BRUSSTAR 40 at gmail.com. And thank you very much. I'll see you all next week.
Yeah, we look forward to having Warren Brewster on Monday Night Baseball, everybody, here on the South Florida Tribune Media Network. Enjoy your time with your son. Your family here enjoy their time with you. So see you next Monday night. Have a great weekend. Uncle Warren, God bless, buddy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. So what we're going to do now is, before we go to our station break, we'll go ahead back to Bob Gibson. Eric, what are your thoughts about Bob Gibson? Well, we'll go with Gibson and Staub, and then we'll go ahead and go to the station break.
Oh, I already shared my thoughts on Gibson.
Oh, did you? Okay, no problem. Barry?
Well, yeah, we talked about Gibson, but going to Staub, I played with Staub in Montreal. I just came up, and so I was around him more than played with him because I was still a young player. But he was a great hitter. I mean, his big thing as a hitter is he lived on the cripple pitches. He wanted to get that pitcher in that 2-0 count and things like 3-1. But he was a great hitter, no question. He was the Le Grand Orange in Montreal when I was there. And he was a very good pitcher and a good chef. So that makes 2 good things in his life.
Yeah, that's great.
He was very loved in Montreal.
Oh,
All
no
right,
question.
We'll go around the horn. Okay, I had a senior moment there. Okay, the one I have to mention is Maury Wills. All right, we'll go around the horn, Candy, with Rusty. Stop. Go ahead.
Oh, hold on. Go to George first.
All right, go ahead, George.
Well, the Tigers enjoyed the time he spent here. He was an outstanding designated hitter for the Detroit Tigers, and that is an amazing stat, Scott. You said over 500 hits with these teams.
Yeah.
You don't normally hear that, and the reason why is because when you got a guy that's that good a hitter, he doesn't typically move around to that many different teams, especially in those days. So that is an amazing stat, with the 500 plus. But yeah, I mean, Detroit loved them too, but you're right, guys. I mean, Montreal is the one that really fell in love with him, and he really got the great vibes going. But he was welcome in Tiger Town as well. A great guy.
Well, think about it. Made the Detroit Tigers. I was a representative of 1976 All-Star team, which had Mark Fidrich on there. So yeah, he certainly did well with his time. All right, Candy.
So he actually is just 284 hits shy of the 3,000 plateau. He was an original member of the Montreal Expos and the team's first star, although he only played 518 of his 2,951 games as an Expo. His enduring popularity led them to retire his number in 1993, while the Mets inducted him into their team Hall of Fame in 86.
Great stuff. Yeah, New York Mets, Rusty Staub, wherever he went, he was a winner. Okay. With that said, let's backtrack over to Maury Wills. All right, George, obviously he went out there and clipped Ty Cobb's record, so let's go to Maury.
Yeah, boy, incredible athlete. Just a great guy for the game of baseball. I mean, I remember watching him when we had the Saturday game of the week. The only, basically back then, the television days, the only time you could ever see guys, especially in the National League, were on these games of the week. And yeah, he was incredible. I mean, I always liked him. He was he just had so much run. His speed was incredible. It is kind of odd that that he beat Cobb's record, but hey, he deserved it. My God, he could run like anybody, and was a great spark plug for those teams he played on.
Candy.
He was the National League Most Valuable Player in 1962, stealing a record 104 bases to break the old modern era mark of 96 set for Ty Cobb. What I find very interesting is in his career, he had 2,134 hits, 20 home runs. He had 458 runs batted in, but he stole 586 bases. So 130 more stolen bases than runs batted in. I find that
wow,
incredible.
All right, Barry.
Well, he was a great player for the way the Dodgers played baseball. They won with pitching and defense, and they were small ball baseball. We actually brought him in with the White Sox, I believe it was, to work with our base runners. Good guy, great guy for the game, and he certainly changed the game. Now we're going away from stealing bases in this era, but during his era, he was a perfect combination for the Dodgers at that time.
Eric.
I mean, Maury Willis, he was like one of the better base stealers of that point in time, to the point where the Giants, like Warren said earlier, they would literally take water and soak the base paths. Heck, they probably not only would it make mud, but I'm sure with the amount of wind that blew off the bay at Candlestick Park, it probably froze the ground to the point where Wills they were trying to get him to fall over as he's trying to run. But a great base stealer. Played. He was one of those guys. He was at the time your prototypical leadoff hitter, and you didn't want him on base because he'd make stuff happen.
Okay, time for a station break. Candy, go ahead.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the media industry and how it has evolved. If there's anybody on your gift list that you think is going to try to get into the media business, whether it be writing or broadcasting, This book is for them for the holiday season. It's a great gift. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. Or if you just want to have a bunch of good stories, Scott's a good storyteller, and there's some good stories in there, including how he told off one of his college professors and showed her up. Got to get the book to find out, read the story. George Eichhorn also wrote the foreword. He's a panelist tonight. Awesome job, gentlemen. There's also a link on our website that goes to the book, www.southfloridatribune.com, where we have a plethora of other great content. So go check it out, including articles written by Scott, including articles written by George, and including none other than Mr. Eric Katz, who is writing about a team near and dear to my heart. So go check out our website as well. If you'd like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show or be a guest on one of our shows, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Last but not least, if you see that red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. What are you waiting for? Just do it. Click it, like us. Share us with all your friends and family. We're trying to get to 1 million views by the end of the year. Help us get there. We're getting closer. But then turn on your notifications so you're notified every time we go live. Back to you, Scott.
And speaking of Eric Katz, he's a strong candidate right now. I'll have the forward to be written, but I may have 2 or 3 people writing. Eric is definitely one of the people that's right at the top of that list. Barry, that just shows to show you how far Eric has come along in our system. This kid here came here not knowing much, and all of a sudden he stayed with us for a while. You taught me a lot about developing people, right, Barry? Back in the day when you were the skipper for the Fort Lauderdale Yankees. Well, Eric is one of my top students, and this kid is a strong candidate to write a forward for a book. So that he certainly helped. So this goes to show you, Barry, having this kid, with us, he's a gift to us, and we're glad to feature him a couple of times as well. Also, I'm working on trying to get Barry Bloom for our Saturday show on December 20th. So anybody that wants to be a part of that show, let me know. Barry, just to let you know, if you ever find a Saturday you want to talk to Barry Bloom, fine. If you don't, no big deal. I already talked to him about you anyways, that you're on the show anyway. So Barry's one of the best writers out there on the planet. I don't know how often you've worked with him, but Barry, you have an open invitation to come on anytime you want to.
Well, I appreciate it. Glad to have Eric on board here too.
Yeah, he's a great kid. I'm proud of this kid. All right. With that said, the Giants dismissed manager Bob Melvin. Where could he land next, Mr. Katz?
I think Bob. I don't think it's going to happen this year because right now I think all the managerial jobs are kind of filled up right now. So I think he's going to take a year off or become someone's special assistant. So, but it remains to be seen. Like it depends on who seats the hottest right now because I feel like this year, like a lot more managers got fired than normal. So, and some of them actually happened during the season. So I don't know. It could very well be the Angels because that organization's ready, fire, aim when it comes to hiring and firing managers, probably at a rate faster than George Steinbrenner ever did.
That's funny. Go ahead, Barry. You got to follow that one.
I think that Eric hit a good point there. I think he'll be somebody's special assistant, and whoever hires him to do that's probably. If I was the manager of that team, I'd be a little bit scared of what's behind me. But he's really a good baseball guy. He's got a good track record, but he might be too much of a real baseball guy with all these analytics going on now. That he may not get the same opportunities you would think he deserves just because I think he's more of a baseball guy than he is an analytics guy.
Great points all the way around, Barry. Go ahead, Candace.
With that being said, I could see him coming over and, talking with the Brewers. I mean, because Pat Murphy, I don't think is quite as analytics driven as some of the other managers around there. I mean, he played for Tigers, Giants, Orioles, Royals, Sox, Yankees, and White Sox. As a manager, Mariners, Diamondbacks, Athletics, Padres, Giants. And as a coach, he was with the Milwaukee Brewers, the Detroit Tigers, and the Arizona Diamondbacks. So you just, I don't know. I mean, I think I see him more as a consultant, but watch out because I could see someone coming and grabbing him up.
George?
Yeah, he's got a great baseball mind. There's no question about it. I've always admired him. I don't know what the first job's going to be. I mean, there's always talk about whether Aaron Boone's going to last another season, but I don't see them making a change right now. The Yankees, there's a lot of teams that, like you guys said, the jobs are filled right now. I think that he will take a year off. I agree with that assessment, Eric. But you're not going to go wrong with him. This guy's got experience. He's got the know-how. He knows how to mold a team, and I just think that he's a valuable asset wherever he lands.
Okay. Well, I don't see.
Hold on,
Go ahead, Eric.
Hold on, I'd like to rebuttal. Well, I wouldn't. It's not that Bob Melvin's not analytical. Keep in mind though, he managed under Farhan Zaidi, who was very, very analytical. So if he can get hired by Farhan Zaidi in San Francisco, I believe that someone else will be willing to take him on. I don't think the guy's non-analytical. I guess he's just not very public about it. But Farhan Zaidi hired him, so I still think he can get another turn in the saddle because he's had a lot of success in his career. And keep in mind though, he was a big part of Oakland's success during all those years as well.
Yeah, I don't see him surviving the New York Yankees. That's a tough place to manage. There's no way he makes it there. I'll make a prediction, and we'll talk about it later, not tonight because we're running out of time. I want to make sure we get to everything. The only one I could see replacing Boone at this point would be Don Mattingly at some point, but right now Boone's there for at least a year under contract. With that said, we'll transition to some more baseball history. That refers to Bill Miller on July 29th. That's a day in history. 2003, Bill Miller did 2 grand slams in one game. The Red Sox third baseman collects 9 RBIs in a 14-0 win against the Texas Rangers. George?
Well, talk about a slam of a game. Oh my God, 2-in-1 game. Incredible. I mean, I can't remember much else about his career other than that, but I think that 9 RBIs and 2 grand slams, Scott, says it all, man. That's an amazing feat, and one for good. Like you said, this day in history, I love it because you're bringing up things that we probably forgot about, most of us. But there's a lot to be said for a slugger like that, man. That's great. That's a great achievement.
I like coming up with these off the wall stats because the whole idea behind our show is we try to give you insights about current events and maybe add a little bit of history to it. And how often is Bill Mueller going to get talked about? Not much. Yeah. Right. But he's no relation to the mules that exist out on other teams that aren't very good. But Bill Miller, when you're able to go out there and hit 2 grand slams in a game, that's a pretty good accomplishment in its own right. Candy?
Not only was it 2 grand slams in one game, he hit them from both sides of the plate, one from each side of the plate. So that was pretty crazy because I think that he did that. And I think in that same game, he also hit another home run. So it wasn't like it was just the 2 grand slams. I believe he had 3 home runs in that a solo shot. So it was 9 ribbies in that game. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Wasn't that, Barry? A lot of he had one whale tonight that nobody will ever forget.
Yeah, it wasn't that big a deal since Tony Cloninger did it as a pitcher. So hitting 2 grand slams in one game isn't that big a deal. So okay. Just kidding now. Being facetious.
Oh, it's okay. That's how I like it when you do that, Barry. It just shows you that you're blending in nicely with the way people behind the microphone do things. All right, Eric.
Bill Miller is probably best known for his time with the Boston Red Sox, particularly 2004 in the 2004 postseason when he collected, I believe 14 hits that year and helped the Red Sox win the World Series. But it's pretty impressive though. I did not know that he hit 2 grand slams. I just remember Bill Miller just during his time with Boston, particularly, he was a force to be reckoned with during the 2004 postseason.
Okay. Onwards we go. From Bill Miller, we talk about Ryan Helsley. He was actually signed by the Baltimore Orioles and reportedly have a 2-year deal in place. George, some thoughts about Ryan Helsley. I know there was talk about everybody's talking about where everybody should go, turning him into a starting pitcher, but he's with Baltimore nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, Tigers could use somebody like a lot of people could use a pitcher like that. He's a good guy. I mean, I think that as a closer, the Orioles obviously want to go, obviously, is an understatement, want to turn this thing around after they ran into a brick wall the last year and a half. So I think that that's a good acquisition for them. I think that Helsley was pretty sought after, like you said, Scott. A lot of teams probably wanted to get him signed and on board for their team. So $28 million deal with the Orioles. Hey, the kid's gonna get to enjoy a lot of money, but he's a tough guy. He's a tough pitcher to hit against, and I wish him well in Baltimore. I do.
Candy.
Win-loss record 31-18, earned run average 2.96, 377 strikeouts, 105 saves. Who wouldn't want someone with that kind of resume on your team?
Perry, obviously you're a catcher. You know what this guy's about.
I don't know much about him as far as seeing him. Obviously his stats speak for themselves, and he's. I'm not sure why anybody wants to go to Baltimore, but I guess that's a good place to land, especially somebody who could most likely get with a real contender. I mean, Baltimore is a borderline. I mean, if their young players come back and play like they can and have in the past, they may be a contender again, but it's a mighty tough division they're in.
No question. Eric?
I think that, I think last year Ryan Helsley, at the beginning of the year, he was all right. He wasn't dominant like he was the season prior the season prior for the Cardinals. I personally thought the Cardinals should have traded him a lot earlier than they ended up trading him, because that team really wasn't a postseason contender after 2022. They had some brief flickers there, and I think 24 where they were relatively in it, but they ultimately faded out. So I really was disappointed the Cardinals didn't trade him earlier. However, with the Mets, though, he was an adjunct disaster. Like anything the Mets touch, it turns into the Wicked Witch of the West at the end of the Wizard of Oz. It melts. Just like their postseason lead in the wild card race. I think Baltimore's getting him because Felix Bautista's hurt again. Who knows if he'll be back, because he's had not one but two major shoulder injuries, that's never good for a pitcher. I don't care how good medicine has become now. If your shoulder is hurt, it is not good for a pitcher, and those things can be career enders. So we'll wait and see though. But he's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how it works out for him. But like the Mets though, it seems like with pitchers, anything Baltimore touches ends up blowing up in their face.
Okay, time for some World Baseball Classic update. Salvador Perez has been named captain of Team Venezuela for the 2026 World Baseball Classic. George?
Hey, he is a definite leader. Salvador Perez. I mean, this guy knows what he can do. This is a great asset to his team and his country. I'm looking so forward to seeing what happens in this year's tournament. And who knows? I mean, a guy like Perez has got so much going for himself. I think that it's going to be a fun tournament, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad you're keeping us up to date, Scott, on these various announcements, for the World Baseball Classic. But that's a great decision by Salvatore.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. That will be here sooner than we think, and I'll have more of them as they come along. I'm just trying to come up with as many as I can. Next week, we'll talk about some more offseason moves. Didn't have enough, and next week, we're going to talk about Jeff Kent making it to Cooperstown. So just to give everybody a preview. Candy, go ahead. Let's talk about Mr. Perez.
Awesome. I mean, like George said, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the 20 different teams defending champions, trying to undefend Japan. But kudos to him for getting selected to help his team in the World Baseball Classics. I like seeing these classics and people going to their heritage and, representing their heritage.
Okay, Barry.
Hall of Fame player, and I understand is a Hall of Fame character guy. So it's good for Venezuela, good for him. He deserves it. I think he's probably two good seasons away from culminating a Hall of Fame career.
Beautiful. Eric?
I think that he's well deserving of it. He's been one of the better offensive catchers in baseball. He held the home run record for a catcher until Cal Raleigh shattered it by at least 20 plus home runs this past season. But that comes to show you how talented he was. But he's good for him. He's had a very long storied career. I think he is a Hall of Famer because up to that point we weren't counting on catchers to hitting damn near 50 home runs, and he also he's been able to do that. I mean, you could make the argument that he crawled so Cal Raleigh can walk. So right. Yeah, it's good for him. I mean, it's it's another great mark on what has been a tremendous career for him.
Great stuff. Okay, well, a couple more World Baseball Classic updates before we wrap up the show. We're doing really well on time. Glad everybody's out there joining us, and we're happy holidays to all that are out there as well. So more World Baseball Classic updates. Junior Caminero will play for Team Dominican Republic in 2026. George Eichhorn.
Again, this is, I'm not too familiar with him, but I again, these players that are good enough to play for their countries, let me tell you, they are good enough, obviously, to stand on their own 2 feet. They are as passionate about playing for their nation, and I think that's what the important part is of this World Baseball Classic. We haven't seen this obviously in the Olympics. The major league teams haven't been sending players, and that's a little bit of a shame, I think. But to have this classic go every so many years is wonderful. And Junior's going to do a good job for them. I really think he will for his team.
Hey, Candy.
I'm going to say the same thing again. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing these players play out and see what they can do on the field with a different group of people. We're used to seeing them with their respective teams, but now to see how they mesh with and play with teams from their same heritage. I'm excited to see it happen.
Barry.
Well, I think the Ohtani Trout at bat at the end of the series 2 years ago was really the beginning of making this a real something that it looks like the players are actually taking it seriously on the U.S. side. And obviously the Latino players, they always take baseball seriously. Right. But I think I'm happy to see that the Americans understand that it's important to try to win in this series.
Okay. Eric?
Well, it's gotten a lot better in recent years, I think. I used to not really like it though, because besides the fact that before winning it, Team USA used to lay an egg regularly in the tournament. But it's great now. I mean, you're getting the best on the field. I mean, it's Junior Caminero. I mean, he had a breakout year last year by blasting 45 home runs and knocking in 110. I mean, talk about announcing your presence with authority, to quote Bull Durham. It's terrific for him. I think we're going to be in for a competitive tournament. I think this year the rosters are deeper than ever, and I'm looking forward to a fun WBC.
Okay, last World Baseball Classic update of the night. For that matter, last topic of the night. Geraldo Perdomo of the Diamondbacks will play in the 2026 WBC for the Dominican Republic. George.
Well, the Junior, another guy that's up and coming.
Geraldo Perdomo, George.
Yes, I couldn't remember the name. Senior moment, my man. Yeah, but hey, listen, I give these guys credit. I mean, this is something that they want to play. They want to take time off from spring training, and it's not easy to do that. I mean, there's no good time of year, I guess, but people that are trying to get in shape for the season and represent their country at the same time, hell, I would go to it in an instant. Arizona Diamondbacks guy, I think he's a good guy, good player. I don't know that much more about him, but hey, I'm interested in seeing him in the World Baseball Classic representing his country. You bet.
Candy.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add to George. I mean, again, it's great to see players representing their countries, and it'll be exciting to watch.
Barry?
No, I think it's good for baseball, and it's like Eric said, they're taking this more seriously now, and it's got a chance to be a very good World Baseball Classic this year. I have never looked forward to it until last 2 years ago when they had it, but I'm looking forward to this year. I think it could it could be very competitive, and the kids from these other countries, these Latino kids, Venezuelan kids, they're playing for their country, and they play hard, and they have something. Even the Mexican team, puts on a competitive show, so it could be interesting.
Eric?
I mean, Perdomo had he kind of blossomed this past year by hitting 20 home runs and knocking at 100. Some people thought he should have been an all-star last year, but good for him to crack the Dominican Republic, which is always a deep roster. It's not easy to get on that team, but good for him for breaking through. Again, these rosters this year, I don't think we've ever had a WBC where they've been this deep.
Well, I'll say this much. Number one, few people realize that Bud Selig is the one who started this whole thing to begin with. They wanted to do it. And secondly, what's so fun about this show is not only talk World Baseball Classic, we had a pretty good response up for the Savannah Bananas last week as well. So we're seeing baseball on different levels. I know Barry got a kick out of that show, but I'll be surprised how many people watch that show with the Savannah Bananas. And now we got you interested in even wanting to see this stuff. So between the Savannah Banana and World Baseball Classic, baseball is doing some pretty interesting things is what they really are. And I'll continue to provide more WBC updates as I get them as well. So meanwhile, what a great show with this group here. I really enjoy it. Warren Brewster, Barry, you guys are always two people I think high regard. We got the guy that's going to be right by four, the one that already did. And we got Candy Emily. She's the tomboy, and she's a master of all things and does. I got to tell you one thing about Candy, though, especially on Saturday. We have this show called Inside the Picture. We ran it 2 weeks. I'll tell you one thing. She holds her own when it comes to that for. She holds her own with any, but we had one whale of a time on that particular show, Candy, didn't we? When we talked about football and the Miami Hurricanes. Give everybody real quick before we end the show a little overview of what took place Saturday.
Well, first of all, I have to say we have two former NFL players on that show. One of them, Melfar Jr., who his former college is UCLA, and the other former player is Marvin Powell III, whose former team is USC. Well, if you know anything about that rivalry, USC does not like UCLA and vice versa. So it's a good banter between the two of them. And then you added Scott and me, and we started talking about the college football. And this was before the playoffs were announced. What teams do we think should be in? Which teams didn't we? It was good banter back and forth. You have to go see the last two Saturdays. A Saturday before that, Marvin and Mel were previewing the UCLA-USC matchup and going back and forth. Go check out both last Saturday and the previous Saturday and watch those shows because those were both very good shows.
Yeah, and the amazing part about the whole thing before we wrap it up tonight is Marvin and Mel wanted to do the show to go at each other for that particular thing. I said, what the heck? What do I got to lose? All of a sudden, Barry, how it is, you sometimes accidentally fall into things and it just happened to work out. You know what I mean? And this one did. I mean, this show 186 is baseball talk been going on forever, but these two guys are unbelievable. So, but anyway, what a great show we had tonight. I love this group. Trent Clark will work them in on Mondays or Saturdays, but I felt what we had was worthy of what we went with tonight between the WBC as well as the other updates that we talked about as well. And I always like to incorporate MLB history into what we do. So with that said, as we get ready to wrap up the show, George, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can follow me on the pages of the South Florida Tribune under the contributors section. I also wrote a book on Detroit sports broadcasting called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And thank you for putting the picture of it, Candy. That's the cover of it. And there's a link at the end of my columns. If you wish to order a copy, you can do that real quickly. And you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or on X, Twitter at SanGSports99. Great being part of it tonight.
Great. And we'll have one more Monday night show for the rest of the year. That's next week. And then we'll pick it up the first week of January. So Barry will have one more next week. And then give everybody a chance to take a breath, enjoy their families over the holidays as well. Barry, you're family to me anyways. That's all there is to it. I'll just be
I
bothering you with
appreciate it.
text. I'll be bothering you with text messages anyways. You know darn well I always do anyways. You're always nice enough to answer. So go ahead, Barry. Let
Look
everybody
forward
know
to
they
them.
go. You're the best, Barry. I'm telling you. I will get up to North Carolina, my brother and my partner, and I look at him as one of my big co-hosts here because wherever I go, Barry's always been a nice to come along with me, and now I've dragged him into this, right, Barry? So it is
There
what
you
it is.
go. I like being dragged.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I started the show with Tony Vitelli dragging his pitching coach over, and what do you think happens in our network? I drag it Barry wherever I go. Barry follow. He's willing to come with me, right, brother?
There you go.
That's what it is. All right. With that said, Barry, let everybody know they get a hold of you.
They can get me see me right here on Monday nights. I'll be back with you, Scott, at whenever you call.
You're the best, Barry. I'm telling you, you are. Hey, do you know much about WPIX and all those stations out in New York?
Well, I know a little bit about them. Yeah.
That's all right. We'll throw a little bit of New York talk once in a while, but here and there we'll see. But meanwhile, Barry, I just have to make sure that the guy doesn't have to read my doctor writing. I'll have to just take on that thing called typing generalities. That's okay. I'll live with that. I'm working on that for next week, Barry. I won't have to
Okay.
wait for the first of the year to do that. I'll just do it. At least you were nice enough to be.
I'll believe it when I see it, there, Scott.
Well, guess what, Barry? Next week is December the 15th, right? You'll see it next week. Fair
All
enough?
right. All right. I believe it.
But when you do, you have to give me at least a thumbs up on the return
I'll
text.
definitely give you a thumbs up. I'll even be able to read it, so that'll be good.
Beautiful. Oh, I'll tell you, that's a beautiful thing. I get 2 for the price of 1. All right, Barry. Now you put me on a challenge. I'm going to do it next week. I'll just type generalities, and then you just take it from there. I'll throw the pitch, and you just catch it. Fair enough?
All right.
All right, Canty, let everybody know they get a hold of you.
You could follow me on my Twitter, which is at Sports Team News, and you can check out my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I'm covering the Milwaukee Brewers as well as some of my work on these days on at SouthFloridaTribune.com. And if you think I don't like your team outside of Milwaukee Brewers, I probably don't.
Okay, Katie, take us the rest of the way. Also, let everybody know what I'll be doing in addition to what we're doing as well. You can give everybody a little mini heads up. All right, go ahead and start with what we do, and then the add on.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published this book that Scott wrote, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. He wrote it. It talks about his 40 plus years in the media business and how it has evolved. There's a picture of him with a young Muhammad Ali, a picture with him and a young Tommy Lasorda, if you can picture that. And if you can't, go buy the book so you can see the picture. If you know anybody that wants to get into the media business, it's a great gift idea for the holidays. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content. So go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to advertise, or if you want to sponsor a show, or if you want to be a guest on a show, all you got to do is email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you see the red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. Please do so. Click it, like us, share us, and then tell all your friends and family. And turn on your notifications so you're notified any and every time we go live. We have a plethora of great content. Monday nights we talk baseball. Tuesday nights we talk football. Wednesday nights on Sports Exchange. Honestly, you never know what Scott's got up his bag of tricks, so you have to tune in to find out, because we've talked about just about everything. And when I mean everything, everything but the kitchen sink. On Thursday nights, Sports Wrap is Scott's hockey show, where he has a former GM. So tune in and find out what they're talking about in the hockey world. And then Thursday nights, if you want to relax and come to, as Scott affectionately calls it, my country club, come to fire up and watch us on Thursday nights. And then Saturday mornings, lately we've been doing a Inside the Pigskin show. So if you want a little more football, and sometimes we do baseball too.
Oh.
So check out That's why you got to turn the notifications on so you're notified every time we go live so you can come on and listen and find out what we're talking about. We would love to have you. And we're going to just say hello to Mr. Gypsy there. The one last thing I do want to tell everybody, Scott has joined the group at Roundtable Sports. He is an executive producer on the broadcast side. He will be covering specifically a couple of teams, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Brooklyn Nets, the Sacramento Kings, and they're working on a couple more at this time. So tune in, wait for more updates. But he does a weekly podcast and he does daily little clips that get in stories. And if you haven't heard of Roundtable Sports, it was a bunch of Sports Illustrated writers that got together that formed Roundtable Sports. So tune in to watch those episodes on Roundtable. JagsRoundtable.com or KingsRoundtable.com or NetsRoundtable.com, depending on which team you're more interested in.
And the guy that actually offered me the job was a guy that I work with the Miami Hurricanes as well. He says, "You're my first call," and it turned out to be the last. All right, Eric, I'm going to let you answer this question really quick before we go. Yankees to San Diego for Tatis Jr. What's your opinion on that?
Not really. I'd feel comfortable with the outfield they have right now.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Very good. With that said, that does it for this edition of 108 Inches Baseball Talk. On behalf of Warren Brewster, looking forward to having been back next week. George Eichhorn, Candy Ebling, Eric Katz, and last but not least, Barry Foote, my partner in crime wherever I go. I want to thank you very much for joining us on this episode. We will see you next Monday night. God bless it. And everybody on this crew, have yourself a great week. And except for George Eichhorn, I get to hammer him on Wednesday night. Okay, so he has 48 hours to recover. It wasn't too bad tonight, though, George.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
But don't worry, he'll get it. He'll dose on Wednesday night. And Candy, well, she's on every show anyway, so matter. But meanwhile, hey, Barry, God love you. I look forward to seeing you next Monday night. And I'll be.
Thank you, Scott.
I promise you, I will go ahead and text you that stuff as long as I get the thumbs up. I'm happy with that. I'm real easy. So
All right.
do it. All right, so God bless everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Monday night. Monday Night Baseball with this group. 108 Inches Baseball Talk. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.